Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be from, whoever you may be, welcome to the Acquisition System Blueprint. What I'm going to be doing in this webinar is giving you guys the exact framework that I've actually used to make $40 million and basically build my client acquisition infrastructure from scratch. Okay, we're not going to be getting into any weird little shiny objects or any gimmicks or any tactics. I'm going to part ways with my mechanism for thinking about this. Okay, because if you want to solve client acquisition, not just for tomorrow or a week or a month from now, but forever, for the rest of your life, for the rest of your commercial existence, you need to know how to think. And so in this webinar, you're going to get a full framework for how to build a client acquisition system from the beginning all the way to the end so that it never breaks. Okay. And when you figure out how to do this, you will actually become a millionaire, because the only real constraint that you're going to face in business, besides delivering results and getting good things to people, really is actually getting them in the first place. You can't get better results for people if you haven't got enough clients to iterate on. You can't close sales calls without appointments, so you need to know how to get them. So before we get started and before we actually dive into this, I want to tell you that this is truly, honestly, the most important thing that I've figured out about getting clients consistently. Okay. It's not like, again, there's no one answer. There's no one shiny object. It truly just depends on how you see it. It's your paradigm. It's your perspective. I've taught this to 4,500 paying clients at this point. I've made dozens of millionaires from this. I've got hundreds, if not thousands, of six-figure earners from this stuff. This is the thing. Okay. What I'm not going to do in this webinar is give you some silver bullet, flavor of the month outreach tactic. I'm not going to be like, here's a brand new way to do cold email, or here's my special template. As much as you guys might salivate from a marketing perspective over such a wonderful, shiny object, it is not going to fix your business. How many shiny objects have you seen? How many tactics, how many silver bullets have you actually been in touch with that have actually made any difference for you? The answer is probably none, because there's a reason why you're watching a webinar titled How to Build Client Acquisition Systems, because you haven't figured it out, because you've been chasing shiny objects, you've been chasing tactics, you've been chasing copy, and now we need to do this. So what this is basically a new way of seeing how client acquisition actually works. Okay. Now, before we dive in and before we get started into the webinar, I want to understand, who are you guys? Like, what businesses do you have? What did you sell? Who do you sell to? And what are your price points? I'm reading the chat now just so I can properly tailor this. Have we got B2C people in here? B2B people? Have we got agencies, coaches, consultants, info people? Like, pop it in the chat for me now. I'm gonna have a quick read and get a proper understanding of all of this. And you guys are asking me to remove the chat from the screen. Has the chat been removed from the screen? Because I can't see the chat on the screen. So now, I want to make it very clear, guys, that wasn't me that fixed that. It was my wonderful guy, Kian. Without him, I'd be in deep, deep trouble. Right then. All right. Looks like we're back in action. So to clarify, I'm clicking through the slides here. You guys can all see this, right? Beautiful. Okay. Fabulous and fantastic. Right. Before we continue, does anyone have any problems with the audio or the video or the slides, or are we all clear and we're all nice and straightforward now? I think it's all good. All right. Beautiful. Okay then. So let's get into actually what a system is. Now, the thing is everyone talks a lot about systems. I use the word, I throw it around a lot, like system this, system that, client acquisition system that. The thing is a system is like a collection of processes organized to process inputs to produce outputs. That's basically what a system is. That's what a system does. It's a collection of processes. When I use the terminology system, or I use the word system, I'm referring to nothing but basically a collection of things that take someone who's a complete stranger and turns them into someone that actually buys something from you. So there's 5 components of a system, and you can visualize what a system actually is, and you can get it in a diagram just as so. So the first thing about client acquisition systems is, and all systems really, is all systems have inputs, okay? And the ultimate input to a client acquisition system is a human being. And that human being typically has no attentive awareness that you even exist. They are a stranger to your business, okay? Now, what this basically means is when you start a business and when you begin your enterprise and you try and sell something, there are a bunch of people on the planet that could potentially become clients. Okay. And in order for them to become clients, they have to come into contact with your marketing system. Okay. And so the first stage of building a system is recognizing that there are inputs. Now, this might sound very elementary, but we're going to wrap it all up in it. You need to understand the first principles so I can properly drag them through. Okay. Now, if we move on to processes, the middle part of this is the chain of things that moves people towards buying from you. Okay. And if you take a stranger, you need to have a chain of processes that convert those people into clients. This is business 101, guys. This shouldn't be groundbreaking news to any of you. A lot of you are going to be educated enough to already understand this. But the reason we have to start the first principles is to build from the ground up. What we then have is feedback. Okay, so feedback is basically data that tells people how well the system is working. Okay, so if you have a collection of different things that deliver you clients, then there's going to be feedback throughout that entire process. Okay, and we receive feedback from metrics, from data, basically telling you how well it's working. And then we have the environment, which is basically the marketing or the market conditions, really, that your entire business operates in. So if we take, for example, Imperium Acquisition, my business, then the inputs are going to be people in the market, okay? So agency owners, coaches or consultants, or info business owners, or B2B service providers who might have never heard of me before, or maybe they have, but they have a problem with client acquisition, okay? What we then have inside of the business are a series of processes to convert their attention into client acquisition, or into actually the acquisition of clients, okay? So I've got a sales team, right? I've got an onboarding process. And if we reverse engineer it all the way back, I'm doing this webinar. We have book a call funnels. We have YouTube channels. We have Instagram. We have there's a whole series of things that have to happen for someone to become a client. And then obviously you have clients and that happens. So there's two big misconceptions when it comes to systems for acquisition. The first one is the idea that a system means automation, okay? This is wrong. And it's plain simple wrong. Having a system does not mean that you have something that works without you, okay? A lot of people think that the word system and automation is sort of interchangeable. Nothing could be further from the truth. A system is something that is predictable and works in the same way every single time, okay? So let's take, for example, a McDonald's restaurant, okay? They have a system for creating a cheeseburger, right? That doesn't mean that the cheeseburger creation is automated. It still has to be done by human beings to some degree, right? And so therefore, it's the system, it's not automated. Now, if you have a sales script that you follow on every single sales call, you have a system. And if you have a manual way of doing cold calls, you have a system. Automation does not mean systematization. The second misconception is if I'm not getting clients, my system is broken. So what you need to understand is that systems are by design, they are their output, if that makes sense. And so basically, if your system is producing bad results and you're not getting clients, the system isn't not working, it's just working in the way that you've designed it to work, okay? And you have to be able to separate your intention for a system's production from the way that you've actually built and designed it. They're two very different things. So if you've got a cold calling system in your business right now, and it's not working and it's not getting you any clients, it's not getting any appointments, then it goes without saying that that system is working how you designed it to work. Your intention for its function is not always going to be exactly, what happens and how it goes. Okay. So it's not broken, it's just designed wrong. So I want to clear that up really quickly, because when I'm talking about helping you guys build client acquisition systems, you don't need to have automation for something to be systematized, right? You're still going to need human beings. You're still going to need manual inputs at certain stages. And on top of that, if you have built a system and it's not getting results, it's not that the system isn't working. The system is working in the exact way that you set it up to work. So the output you're getting, if you're not getting clients, it's because your processes are broken or because your inputs are broken, not because the whole thing is done for. If that makes sense. So let me give you a little analogy. And I like to use this. I use this in EasyGrow a lot. It's called the lasagna analogy, okay? Now, let's say that you want to make, and by the way, I came up with this analogy when I was making the training program because I thought I was a pretty good lasagna chef until a few things went wrong in the kitchen. So that's a side story for you. But let's say that you want to make a really good lasagna, okay? And, let's say that you're like, right, for some reason, the impulse has swept me away. I fancy Italian tonight. It's lasagna time. You put your garlic bread in the oven. You get your red wine. I don't know what wine you drink with lasagna. I'm assuming it's probably red wine. That sounds about right. and you think, right, I'm gonna smash this. But the problem is that your ingredients are stale, you don't have any salt, and you only have sugar, and you cook it 300 degrees. Like, the output is going to be awful. Like, the system to make the lasagna wasn't broken. It's just the system was basically doomed to fail from the second you gave it the wrong inputs and the wrong processes. Because one of the processes of making lasagna is cooking the lasagna in the oven. And how well that goes is going to be determined and governed by how many degrees you use to cook it. Does that make sense? And so the point I'm making here, guys, is that, like, you could take the best chef in the world, right? Let's use an example. We'll take Gordon Ramsay, right? The best chef in the whole world at making lasagna. I don't know if Gordon Ramsay's the best chef in the world, but you get my point. He's certainly better than me, or probably you. If you gave Gordon Ramsay, we're getting really English today. Gordon Ramsay, stale ingredients, sugar instead of salt, and a 300-degree oven, it doesn't matter how good Gordon Ramsay's system is. It's never going to work. The inputs are fundamentally broken, and the processes are fundamentally broken as well. Okay, so if you're not getting clients, you need to fix the inputs and the processes, and you've got to be able to distinguish between these two things. Okay, so again, this comes back to these 5 components. You've got to have the right inputs, you've got to have the right processes. The outputs are the things that you have to receive to get the feedback, to improve the inputs and the processes, and then the environment is all there. And the key to this whole thing is building a feedback loop. Because the first time that you try to build a client acquisition system, you're probably going to get it wrong, or you're probably going to make some sort of serious mistake. But the reason that you can actually succeed in the longer term is because you're listening to feedback. The way that a lot of people build systems, and the reason they struggle so hard with client acquisition, is because they get all emotional. You know, they put some cold email thing in place, they build a sales script, and then they cross their fingers and expect it to work the first time around. But then they forget that you're no different. Like, trying to get a client is no different from like trying to cook a lasagna for the first time. Even if you've got like the ingredients and the cookbook and the process to follow, there's still going to be some things that you get wrong. And it's not until you actually sit down to eat the lasagna or try and get the client where you realize where you went wrong. Oh, this is way too salty. Oh, this is way too cold, or this isn't cooked right. So, you've got to get that feedback in. So I want to give you guys some real sort of source here around something that I call microaction chains. Okay, what you have to realize is that getting a client is the macro term that we would use to define a series of micro decisions. Okay, so in order for someone to become a client, what that basically means is they have paid you money. Okay, it could be $1,000, could be $1,500, could be $10,000, could be $30,000, could be $200, right? But to get a client, someone has to actually transact with you. They have to open their browser, put in their credit card information, and click submit. Only at that point do they become a client. But the thing that most people struggle with when it comes to client acquisition is they forget that, like, that end result is what they're trying to achieve, but there are dozens and dozens and dozens of little end results that you have to put into place for someone to get to the point where they submit their card information. And so the reason most people completely, and pardon my French here, fuck up when it comes to getting clients is because they're so focused on the end result and trying to engineer that. That's not how it works. What you have to do is learn to engineer every little step of the way. And so, for example, with YouTube, let's take my YouTube channel, okay? And I'll walk you through all the microaction chains or the microactions that someone has to take to become a client through my YouTube channel, okay? So first of all, they're on YouTube, right? This is where we're going to gather their attention. They're a stranger, okay? They're an input. Not that you guys were inputs in the past, but this is how you ought to look at it. In order for this person to become a client, they first have to click on the video. So the title and thumbnail has to be somewhat enticing for them. And you can engineer this, by the way, for any acquisition system. YouTube's just the easiest example that comes to mind. Then they have to watch the video. So they have to watch the first 30 seconds. They have to consume the content. They have to stay hooked. And they have to make those decisions over and over again every 5 seconds to stay on the video. Then they have to click a link in the description, okay? And so they actually have to, click the link. Then they have to watch another video, okay? The VSL. Then they have to click on the book a call button, right? Then they have to fill out a form. Then they have to schedule the call, okay? And click the buttons to schedule the call. Then they actually have to become educated before the call happens and receive a bunch of information to become warm. Then they have to actually show up for the call. Then they have to go through a discovery process with a sales rep. Then they have to go through a pitch. Then they have to have their objections handled. And only then do they buy. And understanding how to get clients and how getting client acquisition systems that are easy and making client acquisition easy is as simple as engineering every single step of the way as its own unique little thing. And so when you're looking at trying to get clients or trying to acquire clients, you have to see it as a chain of micro actions. So it's not, someone doesn't just wake up one morning and decide to become your client. They've been through a sort of meticulous step-by-step process to get that. And the cool thing about this is that what you can actually do is you can reverse engineer the micro actions that someone has to take to ultimately become a client into these things called a stimuli chain, okay? Now, client acquisition 101, a stimulus or aggregate collection stimuli is a piece of content or a thing that someone interacts with that triggers a response that creates a physical action in their body. Now, this is psychology 101. It's called conditioning, right? There's a whole bunch of biology I could get into here, but we'll keep it pretty straightforward. If someone's coming through my YouTube funnel, before they can get to the end and buy, they have to click on the YouTube video, right? And so the stimulus in question here would be the thumbnail and the title combination to get them to click, okay? So that's a stimulus. The next stimulus in the chain is the actual hook. So when someone clicks on that video, the first 10 seconds, and then the next stimulus is the content. It's the words that I'm using that keep them on the video that, get them through to the point. And then at some point in the video, there'll be a call to action, which is, hey, check the link out in the description if you want to buy my thing. That's a stimuli, right? What that does is it registers in someone's brain, okay? And instantaneously, it encourages them to scroll and click. Client acquisition is about controlling people's behavior. That's all it comes down to. It's figuring out what you need to put in front of people to control and elicit the next behavior in the chain, all the way to someone submitting their payment details, all the way to being on the sales call, getting the agreement, and sending over that beautiful Stripe link for them to fill out the information, okay? That's basically like the whole thing, okay? And if you can do that, you'll be fine. How's this going, guys? I want to have a quick look at chat here. So make sure you guys can hear me. This is all making sense so far. And I get some feedback. Make sure we're all good. Making sense? Don't worry about chat. What's going on in the chat? We got some we got some haters in the chat. That's all right, man. You gotta let people say what they want to say, man. It's calm. There's no stress. Cool. All right, let's keep going then. So that's basically the whole key. It's controlling behavior. Now, in psychology, there's a beautiful terminology that I'll go into this for a quick second here because I'll help you understand how I put this together. There's this thing in biology called a click-whir response, okay? And a click-whir response, the idea is it's supposed to be like onomatopoeia for like a machine, right? So like if a computer clicks and then it whirs, that's the idea. But there's this whole thing called a click-whir response. And basically some people in biology, they ran this study where what they would do is they would put like a pile of red feathers in the territory of a robin, right? It's like a bird, like a red robin, right? And what they found is that the second that a robin detected that stimuli, right, or stimulus, the stimulus of the red feathers, it would immediately dive bomb the red feathers without even thinking about it. Like it was an unconscious reaction. And in nature, when we observe the natural world, the majority of the natural world runs on click-whir responses. Now, the cool thing about human beings and the cool thing about marketing and client acquisition is to understand that human beings are actually an extension of the natural world. We're still animals. We still have very strong likeness to the natural world. And so in the same way that if you put a collection of red feathers in a robin's territory, it will immediately dive bomb the feathers thinking it's a competitor robin. It's no different from like limbically hijacking someone through a title and a thumbnail. Okay. And this is marketing. It's controlling people's behavior and it's putting that behavior in a chain and getting people to take these little micro commitments all the way up to actually booking a call and eventually buying from you. Okay. And if you can learn to do that, you'll crush. And this is why most people get client acquisition wrong, is it's because they focus so much on getting a client, but they forget that getting a client fans out into 20 different micro actions that all need to come together for someone to actually, do something in full. Okay. So the cool thing to realize is that you've got this idea that client acquisition exists as a macro system. This is the big picture of client acquisition. Okay. And this is basically where, you go from stranger to client. But inside of the big picture, you've got these things called subsystems. Okay, so the macro system of client acquisition consists of subsystems that all work together to produce outputs in alignment with the function of the overarching system. And the subsystems form a chain of processes that a human must follow to become a client. Like, you can't skip a step. Okay, and so when it comes to building client acquisition systems, what you guys need to learn to do is stop trying to build this massive, complicated thing, and just look at client acquisition as lots of little subsystems. You know that whole saying, like, how do you eat an elephant? Is just one bite at a time. The same thing is very true, because you can figure out pretty quickly how to create really good thumbnails and titles. You can figure out really quickly how to make really good hooks. You can figure out really quickly how to make decent content and CTA properly. You can figure out really quickly how to write a good description. You can figure out really quickly how to format a funnel. So all of these individual little things are quite easy to figure out on their own, but it's when you try and do it all at once and you get this messy, complicated brain. It's little steps, step by step. Same thing with ads. Like, I want to build my ad system, and people say, I want to get clients for ads. And I say, why aren't you? They say, well, I don't know what to do. And it's because they're not being critical. The first thing you need to do, and this is an important lesson, the first thing you need to do when you try to build a client acquisition system is ask yourself, what is every single step that a human being or a stranger in my niche has to take to eventually pay me from start to end? Once you have that mapped out on a diagram, or in sort of this fragmented fan, then and only then can you actually get to work on building the system. But if you try and approach it from building the entire thing, it's never going to work. Okay. And so the 6 subsystems of client acquisition fall into 6 categories. Okay. It does not matter what you're trying to do to get clients. It doesn't matter if you're trying to get clients through referral or word of mouth. It doesn't matter if you're trying to use outbound systems like cold email, cold DM, cold calling, cold SMS. It doesn't matter if you're using inbound systems like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever. And it doesn't matter if you're using TikTok ads, YouTube ads, or Meta ads. There are always going to be 6 universal subsystems of client acquisition, or at least, 6 or 7 of these. I said 6, 7 there, didn't I, guys? Gonna have some funny comments there. It doesn't, like, these things are always going to be present. Okay. The first subsystem that you have to account for is taking someone from latent conditions, and I'll explain what that means in a second, so don't worry, from latent conditions through to attention. And this is where someone goes from being completely unaware of who you are, like their entire reality exists before them without you in it, to then you being in it. That's the job of the first subsystem. Is, I'm a human, I've gone my entire life without any cognitive awareness that this person or this company exists, and now I'm aware they exist. That's the first thing you have to get right. Okay. The second thing is attention to interest. And this is basically where someone is like, okay, now I know you exist. Why should I pay attention? This is an interesting thing about client acquisition, by the way, guys, is a human being has billions. I don't know how many neurons are in someone's brain, like billions and billions of neurons. A human being could at any given time be doing anything with their life. They've got an infinite array of options, 101 things on their to-do list. They've got 10 things to watch on Netflix, 5 new shows to catch up on, 50 unread emails. Like, we have a lot going on our mind. And so the key with client acquisition is being able to just grab someone's attention and just keep it. Like, that's the key. And keep it. And the key is to make the thing that you're presenting or trying to promote to them more important than anything else in their life right now. Now, that's the thing, is you only need to have their attention for maybe 5 minutes. Like, think about it. Someone clicks on my YouTube video, they watch the first 5 minutes, they think, this guy knows what he's talking about, and then they go and they schedule a call. That's 10 minutes. And then they go off back into the chaos of their life. And then they show up for the call, and you've got them for an hour. It's very easy to keep someone focused on a sales call because you've got another human being. And that's a sales rep's job, by the way, is basically just to maintain someone's interest and attention and build it to a point of critical mass where they make a decision, or an emotional or logical decision to buy. And so client acquisition is such a fucking beautiful thing, because you're figuring out how to hijack someone's attention that could be going in an infinite number of directions and channel it onto your business. That's the game of marketing, okay? So we go from attention to interest, and we basically go 86 billion neurons, someone said in the chat. Oh my God, that's a lot of neurons. God damn. If he talks too much, it's normal people that leave. Ain't that the truth? I'm known to talk, guys. And so attention to interest. You take some, you get someone's attention, you're top of mind for them above anything else, and you want to convert that into interest. Once you've got their interest, you need to convert them into an appointment. Once you've got them as an appointment, you need to get them to actually show up for that appointment. Once you've got them showing up, you need to prime them to actually purchase. And once you've got them primed, you need to handle their objections to close a deal. These are the 6 subsystems of client acquisition. It does not matter where you start. It does not matter where you go. If you want to sign a client, you have to go through these 6 things, or these 6 systems, okay? So the first one, obviously, is latent conditional attention, and we've sort of covered all these now. And I want to just touch quickly on what latent conditions are, because you guys might be wondering about this. Like a latent condition is how do I best explain this without my trusty PDFs? A latent condition, okay. You as a human being right now have a dormant set of psychological modes that can be hijacked. Let me explain. I'll give you an example. Let me give you the perfect metaphor to explain this. Imagine that your mind is like an oil field. Okay, now this is going to be a bit weird, but just give me a second. Imagine your mind is like an oil field, and a marketer wants to drill your mind for oil, extract value, find out where the money is. Human beings only buy things because of painful situations, okay? But what you don't realize is that in your mind is there's lots of things that register as painful that you're not necessarily consciously aware of. These are called latent conditions. For example, if I say to you, you're trying to start a marketing agency, coaching, or consulting business. Like, I know that people who want to start these businesses, and I could say, are you really struggling with picking your niche because you feel like there's so many niches you could pick from, and you're afraid to pick the right one? Like, people are like, yeah, I am. That's a latent condition. So a latent condition is basically something that makes someone feel a bit uncomfortable about their situation that they might not be able to articulate. And what you can do as a marketer is basically use these latent conditions and empathize with them and mirror. If all you've got to do in marketing to get someone's attention to begin with is mirror their latent conditions. So understand what they're going through, understand what issues they have that might be dormant and laying, and mirror that to them. In the same way that if you were an oil company drilling an oil field, what are you trying to do? You're drilling down into the abyss to try and strike value. The same thing is true with marketing. You craft a message, you put it in front of hundreds or thousands of people, and if that message is aligned with the person's brain, then you're going to be able to extract value from them. Okay. And this is what marketing basically is understanding people and mirroring your understanding of them back to them, but then wrapping that up with some solution to say, are you feeling this? Or do you notice this thing to be present in your life that you don't want? If you buy my thing, I can remove that for you. That's all it is. And that's basically how you get their attention, because you've got to realize, like, why does a human being pay attention? Because it's an interesting word, because we coin, or we put the term pay and attention together. And the reason that you pay attention is because there comes every time you pay attention to something, it comes at the cost of something else. Like, this is such an important thing to understand in psychology. You pay attention. Like, if you're paying attention to this thing, then you're not paying attention to this thing. And so your attentive mechanism, the thing that you use to actually focus in life or become aware of things, anytime you do something, it comes at the expense of everything else in your life. Okay. And so the way that you pay attention in your life is almost always dependent upon pain and what makes you feel bad, because human beings don't like feeling bad. Freud said we are by nature pain avoidant we are pain avoidant animals, which means that we don't want to experience pain, which means that, like, all of our behavior is geared towards escaping pain. But we can't behave if we don't first pay attention to the thing that we should be behaving towards. Does that make sense? And so the key to getting attention in the first place, to actually getting this ladder sorted, is how do you catch people's attention? How do you get them to pay attention? Well, you present something to them that stirs up more pain and more emotion in them than anything else could in their life right now. Now, not everything, because, I might be able to help someone get the next 10 clients, but their marriage might be falling apart. And their marriage falling apart might be more painful than the fact they haven't got 10 more clients. But my point is that it's not that binary. You can fragment it into categories and stuff like that. But when you actually like get a proper understanding of psychology, like you will rinse your competition. Like it is like client acquisition is literally just applied psychology. There's nothing else to it than that. It's just understanding how human beings work and transferring that over into funnels and systems and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much the first one. The next thing, obviously, attention to interest, is it's like now they're paying attention. You have a very short window for that attention to convert into interest. Okay, so think about this. Let's say that you are scrolling through Netflix, okay, and you're looking for something to watch, right? The initial stimulus is going to be based on your latent conditions. For example, I like action movies, I like documentaries, I like things like that, which means that my latent, dormant needs from a viewership perspective is going to respond well to a thumbnail and a title in Netflix that demonstrates some level of action or something exciting or something historical. If I came across some romantic comedy, I wouldn't click. But that's because my latent conditions aren't mirrored by that, if that makes sense. And this is why algorithms function the way they do, by the way, on our Instagram and stuff like that. But let's say that I find something on Netflix and I click on it. And, let's just say there's like a Netflix series that you want to watch. You click on it. That series has got really 2 to 5 minutes of your attention to catch your interest. And so what they're going to try and do at the very beginning of the series is introduce the character and open a story loop and start the hero's journey, whatever it is, right? Whatever archetype they're using to support their story. And if they don't do that in the first couple of minutes, you're just going to lose interest and not carry on. And so the next thing in your client acquisition journey is, once you've got someone's attention, is you've got to keep them interested. Okay. This is someone clicks on your YouTube video. They're hooked in. And after 30 seconds, if they're still watching, they're probably going to continue for a few minutes. That's interest, okay? Interest to appointment, this is basically where someone has basically demonstrated interest, i.e., they're on your funnel, they've replied to your cold email, they've responded well to your pitch on cold calling, right? And you now need to capitalize on that interest and do a bit of sales aikido to get them to schedule an appointment. And the way that you do this, by the way, is you don't give them information. This is a beautiful thing. It's called epistemic curiosity. Okay. In psychology, there's 2 types of curiosity. You've got diversive, okay, diversive curiosity and epistemic curiosity. Diversive curiosity is the kind of curiosity that keeps you scrolling through social media. It's very sort of shallow, surface level, like monkey brain curiosity. It's think like slot machine pulling. You're just curious to see what happens next, right? Epistemic curiosity is when you become interested in something and your brain allocates a certain level of like attention to it and it opens a loop, right? And when a loop is open in a human being's brain, they will do everything they can to close it. This is like why people will like try to finish movies or try to finish books or try to finish, conversations or whatever. People like to close loops. And the thing that forces a loop to close is epistemic curiosity. And so what you do is, when someone's interested in booking an appointment, you don't satiate their interest, you extend it. Okay. And this is what the best webinars will do. It's what the best VSLs will do. It's what I'm doing right now, right? You like, in order for someone to feel like they can close the loop, like they've satiated what they needed to get, they need information. Because that's what we're doing as human beings when we're out online and we're looking at things on the internet, is we're seeking information to solve problems. And that's what we're trying to do on an unconscious level. So when you find someone that could help you solve the problem, but you can't quite get the full picture of how they do it or what they do, you continue. And so the biggest, strongest form of leverage you have for booking an appointment is to take someone who's interested and retract information from them. And as you retract, they will chase you. Okay. And that's basically how it goes. And that's how it works. The biggest mistake that most companies make when it comes to trying to acquire clients in a B2C or B2B setting at high ticket is overloading people with information. Because what happens then is people feel like they've got what they needed. A lot of the time, people don't want to buy things. They just want to figure out how it works. Okay. And so you need to basically drag them through, and, keep them basically, intact. Okay. And that's pretty much how you take someone from interest to appointment. There's really 2 things that will get someone to book an appointment if they're interested. The first is epistemic curiosity, which is basically a willingness to seek more information. And as soon as you give them all that information, then they'll lose interest. And the way that you want to give them that information is on an appointment. That the whole leverage in booking an appointment comes from someone wanting more information. And the promise is, I will give you this information if you give me your time. It's an exchange. That's what an appointment basically is it's an exchange of time for information to solve a problem, okay? The other thing is incentive. They'll show up if they think you can help them and have an offer. The next thing is the appointment to the show. So once they've booked, this is pretty simple. You have to get them to show up. And this is the thing, guys, is human beings have very fickle memories. And I coined this hypothesis when I was trying to solve this for my gym marketing agency. I call it the warm bath hypothesis or the warm bath paradox, okay? Emotions are like a warm bath, okay? They get cold, and the more time that elapses, the more exponentially cold they get, okay? So think about, you run a really warm bath, it's boiling hot, but then it starts cooling down a little bit, but as it loses more heat, it loses even more heat and it gets exponentially colder. This is what happens to your prospects. The reason they book the call and the reason that they show interest is because there is some level of pain or emotion present. But what that means is that you can get them to book an appointment, but now you have to get them to show up. And the way you get them to show up is by booking the call as close as possible to the time in which they showed interest, okay? If you book them out 4 or 5 days from now, that's like 100 to 120, 96 to 120 hours that the bath will cool. Imagine if you ran a boiling bath and you just left it for like 3 days. It's cold. You don't want to get in it. By the time that happens, the prospect's forgotten what the hell you were even talking about in the first place. And so now they're looking at this thing, and like they've kind of lost interest because the loop hasn't been closed quickly enough and their brain's reallocated energy elsewhere. It's a nightmare. So the way you get someone to show up is by, first of all, booking the call as close as possible to the time the appointment is scheduled. Number one rule, 24 hours out if you can. Shit, even 12 hours, even better than that, but no more than like 2 to 3 days max. In between now and then, you have to expose them to more stimuli or more pieces of information that nurture them, encourage them, and just keep them on their tiptoes of information where you're still not quite explaining the thing, but you're still giving them information and keeping them warm. And so you have to imagine it like this. If you book a call now and that call is due to show up in 3 days, okay, imagine that you have a bath and you've run the bath and it's really hot. Okay, the best time to close them is now, but they can't talk now because they're busy, and they're busy for the next 2 days. What you need to do over the course of the next 3 days is every now and then, if you have a bath, you'd let some cold water out and you'd run some more hot water and you'd leave it. And then you'd let some cold water out and run some more hot water and you'd leave it. You need to do the same thing with your prospects. You have to keep them warm. You have to keep touch points with them. You have to keep them familiar with you. Otherwise, they're not going to show up. Okay. So the key here is warmth and creating a series of stimuli that basically warm them and keep them engaged so they actually show up, okay? Someone says, I don't want to sacrifice my time. Well, I mean, dude, like you're sacrificing your time by not doing it because people are just not going to show up. And then you're going to be left with calls on the calendar that no one shows up for, you know? So yeah. The next thing is to go from a show to a prime prospect. This is literally just the sales process. For the sake of keeping this webinar relatively lean and straightforward, I'm not going to get into how to actually sell. If you want to do that, literally just week 4 of Imperium Academy. Most of you are already in there. And if you're not, you can just go to school.com/academy and try that out. And then the last thing is prime prospect to close deal. Again, this is the second stage of the sales process. So you've primed someone. So show to primed is like they've shown up to the call. And now you have to do like a really good discovery, and you have to do a great you have to have a great line of questioning, build rapport, empathize with them, get a full understanding and full picture. And then you have to pitch them. And so the idea is once you've done the discovery, they are now emotionally and logically primed. They're very aware of their problem, and the pitch should perfectly mirror everything they've said in discovery. So it seems like the right thing for them. And then the sixth stage is basically taking that person and getting them through any objections. Okay. And so really it's just latent conditions to attention, attention to interest, interest to appointment, appointment to show, show to prime prospect, and prime prospect to close deal. Those are the 6 things. And what you'll realize about each of these 6 systems is that the output of each system is the input of the next. And so what you can imagine is that these subsystems are all beautifully chained together and they all have to work. And the thing is, guys, the reason getting clients is so hard is because you have to get all of these things right. If you're really good, like a lot of YouTubers, for example, are really good at getting attention, right? They're really good at getting views, but they suck at getting interest. So this is the thing, is it's like a lot of people can get attention, they can get interest, they might have a really good show system, they might have a great sales process, but if they can't get interested people to book appointments, then they're not going to get clients. And so, you know, that whole saying of like a chain is only as strong as its weakest link or something? The same thing is true with how you get clients and how you basically close deals. You know, if one of these subsystems is broken, then all the other systems have nothing to work with. In the same way that, like, you know, if you were trying to make a lasagna, there might be 6 stages to make that lasagna. So you start off by, I don't know if you're making your own pasta, I certainly couldn't do that. But let's say you're making your own pasta. You do the eggs and you whisk the eggs and you try and thread the pasta through. But then if you get to the point where it's time to go in the oven, but you've got no oven, you're not going to eat it. Or even if you get to the point where it's time to actually use the tomatoes, but you forgot to buy the tomatoes, you're going to have a pretty sad lasagna. And the same thing is true for getting clients. You need the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, if that makes sense. Okay. So what you need to learn to do if you're going to make this work is you have to understand these 4 things. Okay. The first thing is throughput. So a lot of you guys who are students of mine or have been in the academy for any length of time or EasyGrow will have some level of understanding of throughput. I'll explain it in pretty simple form. Every single system has a flow, okay? And you can imagine this and visualize this in your head metaphorically to imagine an actual metal pipe, okay? So let's say that there's a reservoir and then there's like there's a tap at the end of the reservoir to irrigate a field or some series of crops, right? And to take the water from the reservoir through to the crops, there is a metal pipe, okay? And obviously, if you turn the tap on, water will flow through the pipe and come out the other side. This is called throughput, okay? And using the same metaphorical analogy of water flowing through a pipe, you can think of it as human beings flowing through the pipe. Now, that, I know that might sound a little bit Squid Gamey, right? So don't get me wrong. The point I'm making here is every single stage is tracked, and there is throughput for all of your client acquisition systems, okay? So in the same way that, like, if you think about it going up the chain, it's going through the pipe. It's the first stage is the first stage of the pipe is latent conditions. The second stage is attention. The third stage is interest. You know, the fourth is appointment. The fifth is show, prime prospect. So there's 7 stages of this pipe, right? And the narrowest point of this pipe controls everything downstream. So let's say that you have 10 meters of pipe, right? I'm not going to be inappropriate here. It could be. I know a lot of you guys are thinking the wrong thing right here. But if you had 10 meters of pipe to play with, I shouldn't have said play with. I shouldn't have added that one, should I? But you've got, for the sake of argument, 10 meters of pipe to play with. If after 30 centimeters, there's like a let's say the pipe's been like welded together poorly, and like the inside of the pipe is all like crumpled up, and that only there's like a tiny hole that water can flow through. The first 30 centimeters of the pipe is going to fill up. You're going to have loads of water there, but the water can only pass through the tiny little point because of the fucked up welding. And so what that basically means is, like, everything downstream of the constraint suffers, okay? And the same thing is true for client acquisition. You can have all the attention in the world, all the interest in the world, all of the appointments in the world, but if you can't get appointments to show up, you're not going to get any prime prospects and you're not going to get any closed deals, okay? So that's throughput. It's the flow of potential clients through your system. And the beautiful thing about throughput is, and the reason this mental model is so concise and just so powerful and so raw, is because you can track like every stage of your client acquisition process through metrics, okay? And so a metric is basically like a data point of how things are performing. And the beautiful thing is that you can track conversion rates. And so every single stage in your pipeline will be able to give you a percentage of how many people entered this stage and how many people converted and left this stage. And if you do the math and divide them by each other or whatever, and times it by 100, you get a conversion rate. So if 100 people land on your funnel and 5 of them go through to, you know, actually book a call, then that funnel has a 5% conversion rate. Okay. And that's pretty simple maths. I'm sure that none of you guys will struggle too much with that. But it's pretty straightforward. So The next thing is yield. So yield is basically the total clients signed by the system, okay? And the thing is, again, I say the system and clients signed by the system, but you have to learn to think in the micro here, in subsystems, okay? Every single subsystem has its own metric yield. So it's not just how many clients did I get this month? No. It's how many offers did I make to qualified prospects? How many people actually showed up? How many people actually turned up, to the booking form? All these things, how many people got positive replies, like all the way back to the very beginning, every single system has yield. And the reason that yield and throughput go together is because the yield is the thing you use to measure the throughput, okay? And this is where you have these things called key performance indicators, or KPI. These are things that you set to determine whether or not the system in question or the subsystem in question is actually performing well, okay? Then we have bottlenecks, which is kind of what I just explained. Like a bottleneck is basically like, I've got, a liter of water in this bottle right now, okay? But fundamentally, if I try to pour this liquid out, which I will not do for all intensive purposes, but if I try to pour this water out, then I can only pour out as much as the bottleneck at the top allows me to put out, if that makes sense. And so the same thing is true of getting clients. It's like, you can have 1,000 people who are interested, but if you don't know what you're doing with that interest, nothing's going to happen. And the last one, and this is the kicker, is latency, okay? So latency is basically the time that has to elapse between someone seeing the stimuli and them doing the action. And the thing is you can track latency on a subsystem level. So like, from someone seeing your ad to booking a call would probably be quite quick, right? Or from someone seeing your cold emails to replying might be quite quick. But the thing is, and this is the issue, is when you stack up the latency for all 6 subsystems, you get the aggregated macro latency for the system from someone who's a complete stranger to someone who's a client. And so to go from latent conditions through to attention might take 5 seconds, but to go from attention to interest might take a few minutes. But to go from interest to appointment could take a day. To go from appointment to show could take, 4 days. And then to go from show to prime prospect might only take an hour, but to go from prime prospect to close deal could take 2 weeks. And so the thing is like, depending on different stages and what systems you have going on, you're basically going to have like strangers becoming clients. It might take a week, it could take 2, 3, 4 weeks. This is called a sales cycle, right? And the reason that so many people get client acquisition so wrong is because they don't account for latency when they're making decisions and when making their calculations. And so the changes that you make to your client acquisition systems today will be reflected in the results you get and the yield you get for these subsystems maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks from now. And the reason that people go wrong, the reason people struggle with client acquisition is because they don't give their systems or their variables enough time to actually produce enough yield to then display the latency, if that makes sense. And so you've got to account for this, okay? So how do you actually find a bottleneck? Like, how do you determine whether or not something's actually, bottlenecking the process? Well, the first thing you do is you don't look at client acquisition or your client acquisition system as this big macro thing. You see it as lots of little micro things that are all chained together, okay? And so if you're not getting clients, I'd invite you to do this right now. If you're like really struggling to get clients, break down everything that has to happen for you to get a client. Then map out every single stimuli or every single stimulus that you have in order for that person to go through that journey. And then ask yourself, what's not working? And you can do this by calculating your conversion rates, where you take the output divided by the input and times it by 100. And your lowest conversion rate will be your bottleneck. Now, in theory, in mathematical theory, your lowest conversion rate is the strongest constraint in the business, right? But the thing is that some conversion rates are a lot harder than others, right? So to get an appointment booking rate on cold email might be 1%, but to get an open rate could be 30%. Now that doesn't mean that your bottleneck is the actual booking of the appointment, because that will be measured like whether or not a metric or a conversion rate is in KPI or not is entirely dependent upon how well it performs in relation to the key performance indicator that you set initially, okay? And this is why you need to have KPIs, and why if you're struggling to get clients, like if I said to you right now, like, you don't have any clients. Okay, well, why do you not have any clients coming in? It's like, I don't know. It's like, well, what are your KPIs? It's like, I don't have any. It's like, well, how are you supposed to improve things if you don't measure them? Client acquisition is just a collection of numbers. And if you don't know what numbers you're aiming for, you don't know how to optimize or make decisions to aim for them. And it's literally just that simple, guys. Like getting clients isn't difficult. The reason you find it so difficult is because the acquisition of a client, it does two things for you. First of all, it forces you to become accountable, because now if you get that client, you're now accountable to their results. And the reason a lot of people struggle to get clients, and the reason a lot of people don't want more clients, is because the fear of what happens if they do. Like if you figure this out, you're now accountable for delivering loads of results, and you're under way more pressure, way more stress, and life might be kind of good right now. And so that's one of the reasons people struggle to get clients, is because of the accountability that comes, the fear. And so when you're trying to get clients, guys, you're either afraid of what happens if you get them unconsciously, or you're afraid of what happens if you don't, i.e. being broke. And what happens is both of these fears intertwine into this mega fear, which then basically, like, you then make all of your decisions and take all of your actions for your client acquisition systems through fear. That's why everyone gets this wrong, and it's why everyone struggles with acquisition, is it's because they're emotional. The second that you compartmentalize your fear and you become logical, and you see this clearly in the same way that I'm explaining here, as a series of chains, as a series of actions, as a series of metrics with KPIs, you'll be fine. As soon as you pair your logical reasoning with the scientific method and iterating to improve results, you're going to absolutely crush. But like, you know, a lot of people, you know, have a real big trouble with this. So it's not like, you've got to stop the emotional train. It's got to become logical, right? So that's how you find a bottleneck. Like, map the chain, calculate the conversion rates, compare the conversion rates to your key performance indicators, and then you attack the one that is most out of KPI. And so, like, I've got a real life example for you here. So let's say LinkedIn setting, right? So let's say you're doing outbound setting on LinkedIn, and you send 320 videos, you get 50 replies. Of those 50 replies, you send 29 Calendly links, and of those 29 Calendly links, you get 12 calls booked. I actually had an idea that I want to just write down really quickly. I had this. I'll tell you guys this idea. Imagine if, like, with cold email. Here's an interesting strategy for cold email that has just come out of my brain from nowhere. Imagine if through cold email, you send a cold email to someone, and they respond positively, saying they're interested and they want to learn more. What usually happens at that point is the cold emailer will reply and say, hey, what time works for you to talk? But imagine if instead what you did is you created an event in your calendar, or a series of events in your calendar with that person for a time that worked best for you. You then replied and said, like, we could call this like presumptive scheduling. If you replied and said, like, hey, John, hope you don't mind me taking the initiative here, but your response tells me you might be interested. So I've taken it upon myself to schedule some times for us to talk. And I've sent you invitations at 5 different times. Of these 5 times, can you tell me the one that works best for you? And I'll lock it in. I wonder if that would work. I wonder if that would work or not, because it would remove this. It would remove the bottleneck of actually having to, like, go back and forth with people. So that might be like an interesting thing here. Carry on. So 2 things that destroy your systems. But the first I said, and I've already covered this, guys, is latency, right? So the first thing that's actually going to ruin your client acquisition system is basically the time that has to elapse between someone becoming a client and, being a stranger in the first place, if that makes sense. Like, if you don't account for this, you're going to make bad decisions, emotional decisions, fear-based decisions, and make a huge mistake. The other thing is regression to the mean, okay? And regression to the mean is basically where you have like it's a normal variance in results that looks like a failure but isn't. And I'm going to explain it here. So latency, we've covered this. I think we're all pretty clear on latency. This is basically where you might, do a bunch of work 1 month, and then, you stop doing the work because you get all comfortable, and then you ride off of your success or your hard work for a month or 2, and then you just fuck it up. But regression to the mean is so important, guys. And this is called like coin flip logic, okay? So if you flip a coin right now, then there's a 50-50 chance you're going to get heads and a 50-50 chance you're going to get tails, provided that coin is obviously not weighted or biased. And most people expect the coin flip to alternate evenly. So most people who don't think logically or think emotionally or whatever, most human beings, if you flip a coin, 10 times, they'll expect it to be 5 times heads, 5 times tails. But the thing is it's just as likely to go 10 heads in a row and then 10 tails in a row. Like, numbers need like a large data set to represent their average accurately, okay? And so, like, let's say that you have a 20% conversion rate sales rep, if you give that sales rep, 100 calls, it's just as likely that they go like one call, like 4 calls, no close, 1 call close, 4 calls, no close, 1 call close, 4 calls, no close. Well, it's just as likely that happens, like that linear chain, than it is that they go 80 calls without a close and then 20 wins straight. Now, that's obviously probably not going to happen, but you get my point. It's like, you need to learn regression to the mean. And like, if you've got a cold email system that has a 10% reply rate and you send 100 messages, then you might get 90 people not replying at all, and then suddenly get 10 replies immediately. But what happens is most people, they give up on email 80 or email 70 and they get disheartened. You need to understand that numbers, like averages, do not present themselves in small data sets. And the more data you have, the more information you have, the more accurate the average or estimate is going to be, basically. Okay. So here we've got some real sales data. So, this could be like over the course of I don't know, like 14 sales calls or something, right? Like you have 14 losses in a row. So this would be like 19, 20 sales calls, right? The first 1 to 7 calls you get nothing. The next 8 to 14 calls you get nothing. But then you get a win the next day and a win the next day, and it accumulates over time to an actual average. I'll tell you a story. Some of you guys know this. It took me 65 sales calls to sign my first client. 65. And the thing is of those 65 calls, eventually I think I probably converted like 10 of them, maybe like 12 of them. Like, but the thing is it took months of nurturing them to get just the first deal. And once I got the first deal and some confidence, I went back to everybody I'd spoken to that I thought was warm with some case studies, and eventually went back and warmed them. And so my initial sales process actually had a 20% conversion rate, even though for the first 65 calls, at least at the beginning, I didn't close a single client. And so you need to learn to think in longer term data sets and time horizons. Now, Polaris Star, this is a critical idea and a piece of ideology that you need to instill into your paradigm to get clients. Your Polaris Star is basically the single metric that tells you whether or not your acquisition system is working, okay? So, for YouTube, for example, the Polaris Star is how many appointments you've booked. For cold email, it's the appointment booking rate. Now, the beautiful thing about the Polaris Star metric is that if your Polaris Star is within KPI, you do not need to touch the system. And guys, I cannot tell you how critical and crucial this is, okay? Like, there's this thing in marketing that we call the urge to tinker, which I'm aware of how suspicious and questionable that sounds. But yeah, I mean, that does sound a little bit weird now that I think about it. But if you've got like the urge to tinker, which is where you want to start playing around with your system and fucking around with it, don't if your Polaris metric is within KPI, because you do not want to optimize the wrong metric, because if you do, it will kill acquisition. You've got to understand that client acquisition systems are non-linear, which means that a change in one part can completely wreck other parts that seem totally unrelated. So let me give you a prime example here, right? So client acquisition systems are non-linear. So let's say that you have a cold email system where you have a 5% open rate, and a 5% point booking rate, which means every person who opens that email actually goes ahead and books a call, right? But you think, oh my God, this is awful. I'm in KPI, I've got 5% ABR. If I send 100 emails, I get 5 appointments. But what I need to do is increase my open rate. Because if I get my open rate to 10%, then I'll have double the appointments, right? That's how people think. But if your system is in KPI, do not fuck around with it. Do not fuck around with it, okay? Let's say that you, for example, decide to improve the open rate. And let's say that you're like, you change the subject line, you change the initial like sort of little messaging in the preview of the message, and you take your open rate to 10% using like a more bait and switch subject line. Well, your appointment booking rate, your open rate could go to 10%, but your appointment booking rate might drop down to 1% because you use bait and switch. So now you have fewer clients, not more, because you optimized the wrong metric and broke the system. So I always thought this, like, if I had an email system that was giving me a 5% ABR, but my open rate was 5%, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't try and mess around with that. Okay. But if I wanted to, then I would look at some other stuff. But I'll tell you how to run an experiment in a second here. But what you need to understand, guys, is that like you need to look at your metrics in a pyramid, okay? And what that means is that you start by, like, if you're trying to fix a system, you ask yourself, like, how many clients has this signed? What's the booking rate? What's the show rate? What's the reply rate? What's the input volume and quality? And what you want to do is pull blocks from the bottom to make it taller. Because if you don't want to do that, because if you try and fuck around with like the metrics at the lower level, then the entire thing can collapse. Okay, what you want to do instead, if you've got a system that's performing or a system that you think might perform, but you want to change something, don't change the system. Okay, this is a big rule, guys. Tattoo this on your forehead if you have to. Never test on a live system. Duplicate the system, tweak one thing, and then run it side by side. And if the new test wins, then you can implement it. But if it doesn't, then nothing's actually broken and clients are going to keep coming in, okay? So if you've got something that's working, getting you clients, and it's finally working, and you've got the urge to tinker around and fuck around with it, do not just duplicate it and test it. Like, run a separate test. You can have multiple outreach campaigns happening at once, okay? It's like if I had like a winning funnel. Like, I spend $10,000 a day on ads right now, 300 grand a month on ads, right? And I've got a funnel that works, but I'm like, oh my God, what if I did this to the funnel? It's like, okay, well, let's not touch the funnel that has 300K a month of spend going into it. Let's duplicate the funnel, make the test, allocate 10% of the spend, 30K, to go to the test funnel and test it on a smaller scale. And if that test outperforms the main, then we'll run another test with more budget. And if that works, then we'll change the main funnel. You never change anything without testing it first. You got to keep the river flowing, you know, and this is because of latency. You know, you can stop outreach today and still sign clients for 2 weeks. So it feels fine. This is the curse thing, by the way, about outreach and stuff. It's like the work you do today will be the clients you sign in a month. And so if you do loads of work this month, you're going to get loads of clients next month. And you're going to have this false sense of security thinking, oh my God, this is fine. I'm doing really well. And then what happens is, because you did no work the next month, the month after just sucks, right? So you've got to look at this from a pipeline perspective, from like a sales flow perspective. Never stop acquisition activity. Even if you're full, even if you can't take on more clients, like, never stop the river, because the work you do today pays off in a month, okay? The other thing is entropy. This is pretty straightforward, guys. Like, this is having an understanding that every system eventually dies unless it's been operated on. So as soon as your system starts working, and as soon as you actually start getting like results through a subsystem or even an entire system, a clock starts ticking, right? Like, copy gets stale, your market gets saturated, platform algorithms shift, like, things are always changing all the time. And you've got to look at it like this. Like, okay, this is the easiest way to explain this. Imagine your market is like a tectonic plate, okay? Tectonic plate in like geography or whatever. And like, you build a house on the tectonic plate, okay? That's what you've done. So the market is the plate, the tectonic plate, and the house is the client acquisition system that you've built on it, okay? Now, right now, that house might not fall down, but what starts to happen over time is the tectonic plates that you've built your house on will shift. Now, this is obviously an extension, right? Tectonic plates don't shift this quickly, but let's say that you sped up time. Over time, they'll shift and they'll change, and the surface of the earth will change and adjust, and the continents will move. And, you know, and so what happens over time is the house will be knocked down by the shifting of the plates, because the system that you've got right now that works right now works in the current conditions of the market. It's Darwinian. It's perfect. It's a beautiful idea. The idea is that, you know, it's not the strongest or the fittest that survive, but those most adaptable to the environment in which they find themselves in. That's Darwin summarized. And your client acquisition systems are no different. Like, if you've got a good thing going now, it's because it's a good thing going now. It's working with the current environment now. But the only constant is change, and your environment is always going to shift and change. And if you don't change with it, then you're fucked. The only way, by the way, to combat entropy and move with the change is consistent iteration and experiments. The second something starts working, it's already dead. It's just a matter of time. That's just how it works. And so what you need to do is take what works, look at the market and make iterations and adjustments of that thing, and run Petri dish test experiments outside of the main thing to see if you can find what's going to work next. And the way you do this is with feedback loops, right? So this is where you basically, you look at the data, you look at the clients you've got, and you feed them back in. And this is feedback loops explained. I think you guys will be pretty familiar with feedback loops. You know, more clients, more belief, better sales. But client acquisition goes one of two ways. It either feeds on itself or it feeds off of itself, okay? And this is just compound acquisition, right? This is the old Warren Buffett analogy. The good old Wasabi was a billionaire at 56, and by 88, he was worth 90 billion. This is just a feedback loop, right? Scaling is very simple when it comes to acquisition. If you want to scale, you just turn up the volume. But what you've got to realize is that scaling is adding more volume to what already exists. So if what you already have doesn't work, then more volume won't fix it. Let me say that again. If what you have doesn't work, more volume won't fix it. If your current funnel, your current product market fit, your current offer, your current sales script isn't working, then spending thousands of dollars on ads is not going to change a thing. Because all we do when we scale is we turn up the volume. We send more cold emails, we make more content or better content to more people, and we spend more money on ads. That's how you scale. But the issue is like if what you've got isn't bloody working, then why would you want to put more through it? It's like having a broken system to make a lasagna, but trying to buy more ingredients to like make the same thing over and over again. Like if you're running the same system, that the fundamental thing is broken. Because metrics hold its scale. So, if you're sending 10 emails a day and getting a 10% booking rate, then by the same virtue, if you send 100 emails a day, you'll get 10%. Now, there is going to be a point of diminishing returns with this, and every system and every kind of acquisition mechanism has a natural limit and cap of what we call diminishing returns. But you don't need a perfect system to scale. You just need proof that it works at a small system or a small scale to ramp up the volume. I like that. Volume of value. Volume. Cooking up fucking new words here, guys. Neologisms. Volume. I'm going to make a note of that because I've got a little YouTube video idea. Volume. It's actually quite a good one. Why has no one ever thought of that before? Cool. Little shiny object for a YouTube video. Oh, okay. I was thinking like VALUME. Volume of value. I quite like that. Is ABR a Polaris star? Yeah, it is. It is. I'll just ban that guy that was spamming. He's gone now. Much more peaceful life. 8-figure brain rot. Oh dear. Imagine if you could like engineer your Valium. Imagine if you could like engineer your client acquisition, like your short form algorithms to be like educational. I think there is actually a system for that. But anyway, so yeah, when you scale, guys, watch for audience fatigue, deliverability, and content saturation. Those are the things that matter. So this brings me to the next stage of the webinar, guys, which I'm going to be quite frank and honest with you, is a pitch. Don't worry, there's nothing you can buy now, okay? There's no link. There's no buy this page. I'm just going to tell you about what we do and how we can work with you to install all this stuff. Because like it's one thing to know like how to do this, but installing it is another. Most people know they need better acquisition, but actually building a system is the hard thing. So there is a thing that we have called Acquisition Nirvana, okay? And this is basically our full stack solution for implementing this with you, okay? So if you guys are struggling with client acquisition and you know that like, you kind of know what to do, but just piecing it together is kind of chaotic, I want to introduce you to this new thing we've got called Action Nirvana, which is our advisory practice, which basically is a done with you solution, completely guaranteed or you don't pay. Okay. Now, again, guys, there's no payment link here. So if you're not interested in this, it's okay. You can just watch me pitch it and you can sit back and relax and just chill out. Okay. But there's a few deliverables here for Action Nirvana. Okay. It's basically designed to help you get to the next level you want to get to. 30K a month, 100K a month, 250K a month, 10K a month, whatever it is. And the key to this is the one-on-one stuff. So what we basically do in the core offering for Action Nirvana is we will place someone into your business who's already making or has made 100K a month with an agency, coaching or consulting or info business, and they will be your fractional CEO. And so what they will basically do is come into your business and work with you and make decisions and give you a custom roadmap and help you build the thing, okay? It's not a done-for-you solution. because Lord knows there's a lot of stuff to do in your business, right? But what it is a 6-month one-on-one program, okay? You have them in Slack, you have them on call, you have them on speed dial, and what they're going to do is basically help you build out a custom roadmap inside of your business. And bear in mind, guys, this is a human being that's actually done what you want to do. They've been at the 100K a month run rate before. I paid them handsomely and generously, and it's a full system build. They'll help you with your offer, lead gen, sales system, delivery operations, all completely built with you. So it's pretty straightforward. Like, if you're ready to do this, and like, I know, guys, that this is obviously like a webinar and it's free content, guys. There's always going to be some level of pitch at the end here, but I can pitch this with my hand on my heart and tell you, like, if you are a coach, consultant, or an agency owner with a business, like you're not in this ideation, pick a niche stage, and you're ready to scale, then there's going to be a QR code on the screen here, or you can have a little look in the description of this stream, and you'll go ahead and you'll find a like a little link. If you click that link, you can book a call. The outcome, by the way, guys, of this is basically a roadmap to get to 100K a month. It's a full stack solution, fractional CEO coming into your business who's actually done this, and they'll go ahead and build it all out with you, okay? If you book a call and show up, we'll just take it from there. It might not be a fit. If it is a fit, then you can buy it. If it's not, there's no hard feelings, but it doesn't cost anything for you to book. So you might as well do it, and it's a pretty good thing. So now that that's all done, guys, and now that's out of the way, what I am going to do is basically put it in the description. Just give me a second here. I don't know if you guys can see this here. All right. So there's now a link in the chat as well. You guys can click. It's a free call. It's an advisory session. It'll be with one of my advisors, and they'll basically diagnose the business and break it all down and get a clear understanding of how it goes. Does the system help with hiring? Yes, it does. It absolutely does. It's a completely free advisory call. You can hop on there. It's sick. So I'm happy to answer any questions about it, guys, because I know that a few of you are going to be quite curious. I am above the stimuli. It is stimuli. But seriously, guys, if you are running an agency or a coach or consulting business and you trust me, or you've got some level of trust in me, and the issue you have is you haven't got enough calls, you haven't got enough shows, you haven't got enough appointments, like, let us just build this for you or with you, not for you. That's a very big distinction. We actually have a done for you solution, but it's for people much further ahead. It's for people at that sort of mid-beginner level, okay? So if you're like brand new and you haven't picked a niche, then this will not work for you. But even if you're making nothing and you're at 0K a month, like, we still can do this with you, right? We've got lots of financing options. It's very flexible, and it works incredibly well. Again, guys, this is like, you have access to a human being that has got to 100K a month, and they will sit in Slack with you, and they will sit on calls with you, and they will literally just build the entire business with you, okay? And this, by the way, I pay these people an awful lot of money, right? So be under no illusion. It's not just some random dude on the internet. How much does it cost? Not enough. It's the simple answer. I need to increase the prices on it, which I'll probably look to do in the next month or two. But if you're curious about the cost of it, and if you're curious about, yes, Kerry, that's my objection handling for you, I'm afraid. But like, seriously, guys, if you resonate with this and you trust me to some degree, go and book that call. Because like, some of you it won't be a fit for. Like, if some of you are dead broke, brand new, you got nothing, then it's just not going to be a fit. And you know it, I know it, and there's no amount of support we can give you. So yeah, if you guys are like serious business owners or you're serious operators and you're like, shit, I just need help getting clients, I want someone who's done it to walk me through it, then you can go ahead and do that. And I'll continuously link this in the chat. Is it okay if I'm at 4K a month? Yeah, it is, man. We can help you at 4K a month. I'm assuming you want to get to like probably 15 or 20. There's no like binary cutoff for like how much you have to be making here, guys. Like, if you're at like 0K a month, but you've got like a really solid idea and you've got some savings and you're like, I actually want to just invest in something that's going to work, then it's going to be a fit. But if you're expecting this to be free or like $100, like, come on, guys, it's a 100K a month agency owner, coach, or consultant. Don't be under any illusion here. But about this call, it's basically a completely free advisory session. So even if you decide not to work with us or work with a proper one-on-one like fractional CEO, we'll still give you a full breakdown. Can you pay monthly? Yes, you can, Kerry. We've got a lovely little payment structure for you. So how much is it? Like I said, not enough. If you guys want to find out how much it is and, you know, whether or not it meets your financial needs, you're going to have to book a call, I'm afraid. This is the thing, guys. I said this earlier. Like, if you've got someone's interest, this is what I've done. What I've done, guys, with this webinar is exactly what I've just taught you to do. Okay? I got you here. We got the attention from the latent conditions. Okay? Like, the webinar is called, like, here is how to, you know, get clients. And what that means is you have some latent conditions where you're struggling to get clients. Okay? We've kept your attention throughout this webinar. We've built interest, lots of interest, lots and lots of interest. And now it's time for me to convert that interest into an appointment. Like, I'm doing this in real time, guys, and, you know, be under no illusion. This is the thing. How much is it? If you guys want to know how much it costs, just book the call, and we'll be able to tell you on the call and break it down. The reason I'm so reluctant to say the price here is because a lot of you guys need this, and if you see the price, one of two things is going to happen. You're going to think it's too cheap, or you're going to think it's too expensive, and you're going to frame your perception of the value of the product based entirely on, like, nothing. You have no idea if like, obviously, you know, it's one-on-one, you know, it's done with you, you know, it's access, you know, it's Slack, you know, it's support, but you don't have any information beyond that. And so me giving you the price or giving you like an understanding of how much the investment's going to be is literally just going to give you a false perception of what it actually is. So Charlie, whisper it. So yeah, guys, I'm happy to answer any questions about it, but the old price thing is a little different. How long did it take to make these slides? It was actually my CMO Susie that made them. God bless her. You know, we took one of the modules. We've sort of worked on these for quite a while. So yeah, you should book the call. If you have access to 4-figure funds and you've already picked a niche, is this the right fit? Just book the call, man. You know, guys, you have to realize, like, if you guys aren't sure if this is a fit or not, it costs you nothing to book the call. And if you book the call and it's not a fit, then we will tell you. Like, there's no, you have nothing to lose by booking this call. Pure upside. Even if you're like, oh, there's like a 10% chance it might be a fit for me, just book the call. There's nothing to lose. It doesn't cost you anything. So yeah, it's not even risk reversal, to be honest, because there's no sell. Is it easy grow level content? This isn't quite easy grow level content, no. So look, guys, if you want to book that call, the link is in the chat. And now let's open up the floor for a little bit of the old Q&A. I'll answer some questions here. Should I purchase VIP or go straight to Nirvana? Just book the call, man. And like, this is the thing on the call. Like, if VIP is going to be a better fit for you than Nirvana, then the person on the call, one of my advisors, will just tell you. You know, the guarantee is very straightforward. If you don't see a return, we just basically give you full refund. So like, if you don't make your money back, then we give it back. It's actually a pretty ridiculous guarantee on my end in terms of what we offer. The live will be uploaded to YouTube, by the way, guys. So for those of you that want the slides and stuff, this will be on YouTube. Don't worry. Doubt avoidance tendency. Bro knows what's good. Passive income skills. What would you advise I do with $55,000? I run an email marketing agency trying to get to 100K a month. I sort of depend on cold outreach. Well, dude, if you ask a barber if he needs a haircut, he's going to say yes. Book the call. It's what I would advise you to do. I'm just fucking with you, man. Look, I mean, if you've got 55K and you're running an email marketing agency, you want to get to 100K a month, the best thing, Look, whether it's me or somebody else doesn't really matter, man. But at the end of the day, the highest leverage investment that you could possibly make is in your education at this level in business, because you're probably not in a position where you can make any full-time hires, because you'll burn through, like, one good salary is going to cost you more than 55K in a year. So you need to learn you need to skill up and invest in your skill set, man. So that's what I would invest in, is a program or some course. And I'm obviously incentivized to tell you that, because that's literally what I'm selling you here, is one-on-one mentorship. But it's pretty straightforward. I'm a creative director for 3 info offers averaging 4K a month. Am I fit for your services? Absolutely. Book that call, man. If you're in that range, that sort of like, 3, 4, 10, 20, 30K range, absolutely book the call. No two ways about it. So guys, this is my first ever webinar, right? My first ever sort of proper slideshow based webinar. So it's been a massive learning experience for me. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, because it's been a fun thing to do, except from the technical issues at the beginning, which will probably never happen again, because we learned from that. How many times do you say easy grow at Imperium Academy? Quite a lot. Quite a lot. I'm going to say it again, guys. If you are a coach, consultant, or an agency owner, or you've got a B2B service and you're not a brand new beginner, book that damn call. All right. There's going to be a link in the description right now. I don't care where you're from, who you are. If you are one of these people, book the call. It costs you nothing to do. It's completely free. And you'll get an advisory session with a member of my team. And you can, if anything, just reverse engineer my sales process. Pretty easy to watch, because we trust you. Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. But yeah, this is a new service, guys. This one-on-one thing. I'm really excited for it, because I think that information is one thing, but implementation is another. And buying access to a 100K a month entrepreneur and having one-on-one calls with them every single week, and having Slack support with them, and having all the systems, and like they'll build you like a custom sprint, like a custom plan, like that to me sounds pretty damn good. So we're experimenting with this offer at the moment, but I think it's going to be the next big thing in the info space and the coaching space, is access and implementation, and hand holding and mentorship. And this is related to the client success managers. But they're like fractional CEOs, Who's booked a call? I'm actually curious. This is going to be fucking hilariously awkward if no one's booked a call. I'm assuming a lot of people who have booked have already left, actually. We've got Dioscar Plasenica booking a call. Kerry's booked it. Come on, Kerry. I knew you would. You're asking me about the price. That's the ultimate form of leverage to get an appointment. Dave Dots did. Fin Acquisition. Passive Income Skills is doing it. Ken's doing it. Guys, we're booking calls here, boys and girls. I am here to sell. And I'm here to sell well. All right? Book the fucking call. We love to see it. What's one piece of advice you would give to 18-year-old broke Charlie? Just go through Imperium Academy. Sorry, man, I can't reduce it all the way down. Transparency maxing. This guy's not doing Q&A. We've got Anchor. She's booked the call. If I got $1 for every time he said book a call, I have enough capital to book a call. Booking a call's free, man. Booking a call's free. I love sales, man. It's been a while, guys, since I've actually hopped on and sold live. Sale had me, Charlie. I love to sale. I want to book a call. Book a call, book a call, book a call. It is the Ben Franklin effect. Indeed. All right, guys. Will this work for a 19-year-old? Yeah, there's no reason you wouldn't, man. I'm 17. I want to book a call. Can I? Probably not, mate. I don't think it's, I mean, you can book the call, and this is the thing, man, it depends on your circumstances. It's like, you know, if you're a 17-year-old and you're already making like 10K a month or some shit like that, or you're really, you know, dialed in, then yeah, we can potentially work with you. But for official legal reasons, we don't work with people under the age of 18. But you can still book the call. I can't stop you, you know. So Dustin, Louisville Web Lab has booked a call. There we go, Dustin. I like seeing book calls, guys. It makes my dopamine spike. Thank you, Atia. All right, guys. I'm going to link it a couple more times. If any more of you want to book a call whilst I'm here overseeing, you can do it now. But I am just call farming at this point, guys. Can I pay you money without booking a call? You can if you want to, mate, but no. It has to be an exchange. Just buy VIP if you want, but I'm call farming. I'm call farming. If we upgrade later with this purchase rollover, you can have that conversation on your call. There's all sorts of stuff that we can do, mate. It's very special. Thank you, Kerry. Much appreciated. Oh, Dio Scar says, I have booked. Capital letters and everything like that. What if we can't invest, but we want an advisory call? Well, you can still book the call, man. We'll just, if it's not a fit or you're not going to be financially qualified, we'll just triage it and you can talk to someone and they'll just see if you're a fit or not. No Q&A, just sales. Let's go. Hey, you guys have got to give me a rest. I did just talk for an hour and a half about abstract concepts. It was, you know, no problem, Nicholas. You're welcome, man. You're welcome. Is this taking the place of VIP calls? No, it's not, man. No, it's not. Just clone yourself to repeat book a call. I am cool farming, guys. Sebastian, you're not gonna strong arm me like that. Answer this and I'll book a call. Yeah, it's age old. All right, folks. Well, I think I've call farmed to a pretty strong extent here, and it seems to me like anyone who was going to book will have booked. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this webinar, and I'll put it on YouTube at some point in the near future. So yeah, thanks for sticking around to listen to me rant and ramble, you know, for the best part of an hour or two here. It's been really fun, and I hope you guys found it useful and helpful. It's always a fun time. So I'll see you guys soon on YouTube, or maybe I'll do another live in the future. Take care, guys. See you later, folks. Bye-bye. I can end the stream. I can't fucking figure anything out these days. See you guys. Bye-bye.